everyone. Today's practice is going to be another yin practice. The yin practices traditionally kind of go with the seasons, and so the last one that we did was more about the heart, which relates to the fire element and the summer. So now we're in a transition period, a time that is like between summer and fall. And if we look at it through the lens of Chinese medicine, these times between the shifts in the seasons, both in the spring and then the fall, we have the equinoxes. So the equinox of autumn is coming up in another week or so, and it's this time where we have very much a balance between yang energy and yin energy. So yang energy is that kind of fiery, more outgoing, outer focused energy of summer, where plants are growing up and out and coming to fruition. And then when we go toward the yin cycle of fall and winter, that life of the plant dies down and starts to go inward, down into the earth. So we can take cues from nature, and if we want to live our lives in a little bit more balance and harmony, we can start to follow these same kinds of guidelines for ourselves. So while in summer we're going to be out there more, outgoing, putting our energy into things, our projects, as winter comes, fall comes, we start to go a little more inward. So this is a practice of sort of grounding in between seasons, finding balance in between seasons, in this point of balance between yin and yang. So each of the seasons then is associated with a particular element. So in the summer we had fire element. This time between seasons is associated with the earth element. Excuse me. So we did another practice a few weeks ago having to relate to grounding in the earth element. And this is a yin style practice that will address some of those same principles. When we are deficient in earth element, we tend to look for our nourishment outside of ourselves. So we'll look for things that tend to fill us up, but in a temporary or false way, right? So for example, Netflix and a glass of wine, that's one solution to finding balance, to kind of being really exhausted at the end of the day, and we just want to chill out and have our Netflix and a glass of wine. Nothing wrong with that. However, it is a temporary fix, right? It's not going to create a permanent change within our brains and our nervous systems, which ultimately is going to give us more health and vitality, where the Netflix and the glass of wine make us feel good for a short period of time, but in the long run, if we would do that every night, is going to lead to more imbalance. So doing these types of practices where we give ourselves time to go inward can help create lasting change in our health, in our mental well-being, our physical well-being, the condition of our nervous system, which also affects the condition of our health. So in these practices, we're getting that nourishment from the inside out, as opposed to looking for that quick fix. Maybe, something out of the fridge is going to give us that sense of soothing and calm, right? We reach for those carbs. But this is a way that we can find that balance without indulging in things that perhaps aren't the best for us. So we're going to target the stomach and spleen meridians, which are the dominant pairs of meridians for this time of year. Stomach and spleen meridians run kind of up from the toes, through the legs, through the torso, connects to our stomach and our spleen, up into the head, and then another channel runs downward. So one's going up, one's yin, one's yang, and together they work to help us find this balance and this sense of nourishment from the inside out. So this is a very slow, mindful practice. If you've never done a yin practice before, it's holding poses for like a longer period of time. I use timers. It's all going to be done on the ground, so no standing work. It's a great practice for when you just want to have some self-care. And this practice helps us become more resilient and able to come back to that homeostasis, that sense of balance in our own systems in a conscious way, rather than engaging in these behaviors that are kind of unconscious, right? We just reach for that habit that helps us distract ourselves from our lives. So the first thing we're going to do is come into a supported bridge. So you will need a block. If you don't have a block, a nice stack of pillows could also work. So we're going to try and target is this area of the hip creases. So when we sit, this is getting a little kind of bunched up in here, and that may also affect how we feel in our lower backs. So we're going to open up the hip creases in a variety of ways in this practice today. So we'll come on our backs first, and then you'll put the block in once you're down on your back. So I'm going to just grab my timer so I can keep that nearby. So we'll come down and then lift the hips up and put that block down under your sacrum. So the sacrum is that flat bone at the base of your spine. You'll feel the block is hard on the bone rather than in the fleshy part of our lumbar. And then we're going to stay here for a few moments. Just checking in, letting that back body drop toward the ground. So again, targeting into the sense of the earth element, which is stabilizing, calming for our bodies and our minds. And we're just going to hold this for a few more breaths, and we're going to take it to another level. Always you have options. If anything causes pain in any of these postures, I want you to remember you have choices, you can modify things, you can back out, take a break if you need to. So yin yoga can be, let's just say, uncomfortable at times, since we're targeting tissues that perhaps are stagnant in their energy. There's maybe blocked energy here in these hip creases. So when we ask our bodies to open up in a new way, we might notice that it's not really happy with that. However, if we can breathe through it and it's not what I call those red light signals, we have burning, pinching, numbness, tingling, falling asleep, those kinds of sensations, we'd want to come out of the posture. However, if it just feels like, oh, that's an intense stretch, and you can breathe through it and it's not creating pain, then I encourage you to stay in it if possible. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is to straighten one leg to get these hip creases even more open. So they're open now, but I'm going to increase that sensation. To give my low back a little bit of help here, I'm going to come on my tippy toes, lift my low back, and kind of pull it, lengthen that flesh, and then catch the sacrum and come back down, because that'll help alleviate this tension in the lower back as we come into this extended leg version. So from here, we're going to slide one leg out. And now I've got even more opening here in this hip crease along these meridians that we're targeting. So I'm going to start the timer, and we're going to do 1 minute in each position of each leg, and then we're going to try to see if we might be able to do both legs, and we're going to change it up again, take it to the next level. So we'll hold each of these positions for a minute. I might keep talking at you because I want you to know that I'm still here, but I'd like you to perhaps close your eyes and start to find that sensation of going inward and noticing your body. So there are 3 types of perception that we talk about in a yoga practice. The first is exteroception. Exteroception is how we perceive the world outside of ourselves. Is it safe? Is this an okay place to be? How do I relate and interact with the world? Exteroception. I'll tell you about the rest on side 2. Okay, so now we're going to switch it. So bend that knee, and we'll take the other leg out for 1 minute. So flip the timer again. The second type of perception, so we have exteroception. The second one is proprioception. So proprioception is how we figure out where we are in space. So it's not so much about everything around us, it's about how we interact with everything around us. So proprioception helps us figure out where we are in space, right? So it helps us find our stability and figure out how we can do something. So if we're trying to do a pose, a yoga pose, how do we maneuver in our environment to find that pose. So that's proprioception. And I'll tell you about the next one in a moment. So take a few more breaths here. Feel that opening across the front of the hip. We're in an anatomical position of hip extension. Okay, last breath. And then we'll go ahead and bend both knees again. Now, if it would be challenging for you to straighten both legs, you're going to stay here with your feet flat. You also have the option of coming up a little higher on your block and staying here in supported bridge, which might give you more opening here. To straighten your legs, you could do that with the hips higher, but I'm going to stay with the block on the first level because for many of us that's pretty pinchy in the low back. So I'm going to redo this lengthening of the lower back and then slide both legs out, coming into this hip extension. So I'm going to do 1 minute again. This time, let's rub our palms together nice and vigorously, and you'll feel a nice warmth, and then put them on your hip flexors, right across the hip bones, and imagine you could melt the tissue under your hands. Okay, I'm going to close the eyes again, and this time, we'll think about the third way of perception is interoception. So the first one, exteroception, the world around us. Second one, proprioception, interacting with the world around us. And now interoception is perceiving from the inside. So what am I feeling in my body? What am I noticing? What is it that I really want? So really kind of going within and looking toward our own needs. This is interoception. And also being able to tell whether something is painful or just intense. This is where these skills are very useful. Being able to go inside is a skill that sometimes is hard to cultivate. So go ahead and rebend those knees again. Take a pause. So we're going to cultivate that sense of interoception so that we can find our nourishment, our satisfaction, our happiness from the inside out, rather than always looking outside of ourselves. Okay, so now we are going to turn that block up another level, if you can. Again, you have the option to just stay here in your supported bridge, or now we're going to take this to another level. So make sure that that tailbone is kind of tipping forward, so you have that length in your lower back. Now I'm going to try and walk this foot back and come on to the top of my foot. So now I'm opening here more in the front of my thigh and a bit up into the hip crease. And we're going to hold that for 1 minute. Nice, slow, deep breaths. Remember, you can always keep feet flat. We're going to stick with that supported bridge. If this is too intense, it's a pretty deep posture. So only if this is feeling safe in your body. I kind of like to tuck my shoulders in, lift my chest a bit in this posture. You might also have that hand there on the hip flexor, softening the tissue in the front of the hip, the front of the thigh. Last few breaths. Sometimes it's helpful for me to have a sense of just tipping my tailbone ever so slightly upward, which will help with the lower back. Last breath. Try not to splay the knees as well. Keep them together. Okay, slowly release that foot, bringing it back. And again, let's do the other foot. Bring that foot back, walk it back. Try to be on the top of the foot. Legs stay close together. And we'll stay here and breathe. Shoulders tuck under, tailbone tips up a little bit. But otherwise, try not to have too much effort. So in a yin practice, we're trying not to engage muscle. So we might need a little bit of engagement of kind of tipping the tailbone up and drawing the belly in to protect the lower back. But otherwise, arms are relaxed, face relaxed, and just be here in the pose with your breath. almost there. All right, last cycle breath. And then we're going to slowly release that foot back to center. Lift your hips and lower that block down. Now your low back may be speaking to you, may be a little tender, feel like a little fragile. It's okay, it'll release, it'll settle. Just go ahead and drop back into that supported bridge. And now we'll come out all the way. So lift the hips one more time, slide the block out, slowly come down. And now just pause here. Feet flat, knees are hips distance apart, the spine is neutral. So I always want to neutralize, particularly after a deeper posture like we just did. So feel like maybe 3 breaths. Imagine that breath going from your tailbone to the crown of your head as you inhale. And as you exhale from the crown of the head back down to the tailbone. 2 more times. One more breath. And then from here, arms out and just windshield wiper your legs side to side. So again, this is kind of a counter pose to what we just did. All right, so coming back up now, we're going to roll over to the side and bring ourselves up. And we're going to take a lunging position next. So I would like you to make sure, and straighten out my necklace, make sure that you have some padding under your knees. So I have a blanket down. You might want a pillow for under your knees, a cushion, whatever you have around. And also have a block nearby. So we're going to start this with the I'm going to do the left leg forward. So we start by stretching out the right hip flexor. So from like a tabletop pose, you're just going to step your right foot forward. And so when we do that, we initially come into a lunge. I'm going to have my hands inside the foot. Now this is stage 1, right here, being up on the hands. But I want to get more into this hip flexor, so I'm going to let it drop forward. Okay? Now, some of you might want to come down deeper. So if you do, you could try a block or 2. I just have 1 here, but you could have 2. And you could come down onto your forearms. If that still feels like you could go further and it's pretty accessible, you could then use a pillow. So then I come down even lower. Maybe walk the knee back a little bit. And then you could drop your head even. Place your head down. I have my thumbs up and just resting my head in my thumbs. So I'm going to go for a 3-minute hold now. So this one can be rather intense. In the yin yoga tradition, it's called dragon pose. And you might even feel like you want to breathe some fire here because this is a pose that brings up a little bit of heat in the body. But see if you could stay with it and use your breath to help guide you through the intensity of the posture. Remember, we're opening up areas of the body that perhaps have not really had a lot of chance to stretch and to open and to increase the energy flow. So the body may not like it, but it doesn't mean that it's not good for it, right? It's not a situation, however, of no pain, no gain. I don't want you to be in pain. So if you are in pain, you would stay up higher like I'm doing here, maybe even up on some blocks to come higher. However, if you feel good, you drop down lower. You kind of have to just gradually approach a yin practice. We don't want to go full force into that deepest version right away because our tissues like a gradual release, right? So think of a flower bud. If we were to take a flower bud and force it to open, we would tear that tissue. We would tear the flower petal. But if we allow it to open in its own time, it's going to open with beauty and safely, and we won't damage that flower. So approach your practice like that of the opening of the flower. We've got a few more breaths here. If you can, let that head drop. You could always support the head on a block underneath your forehead. That's another option. Release your effort into the ground, into the earth. Stay soft through your face, through your jaw. You're almost there. Last 3 breaths. Now after your 3rd breath, do take your time. We're going to come out very slowly, just as slowly as we get into a pose, we want to get back out. So gradually walking yourself back up, and then coming out with ease, stepping that leg back. Now you could stay here in a tabletop and circle your hips. You could come off your knees, take a brief down dog, pedal it out a little bit, and you could also do a child's pose. But child's pose might feel like too much almost coming back, so it's your choice. You decide what might feel best in your body. Okay, so after you've had a little moment to come out of that, let's try the other side. So now I'm going to step forward with my right foot and have that deep stretch in the left hip flexor. So stepping forward with your right foot, and then let the hips drop forward. So we drop forward in that dragon just to get into that back hip flexor, and then ease into the posture. You could stay up on your hands, you could come down onto a block, you could come down onto your forearms. And then we're going to stay here, releasing our effort, dropping the head, finding our breath. Allow the breath to be slow, smooth, and deep. Have some breath down here into the lower belly, into the hip area. So see if you can feel like you're bringing that breath a little deeper into your body. Maybe even bring it into the lower back if you could feel like a 3-dimensional breath. It's going to be very nourishing for your body. And then come back to that interoception, going within. I feel like on this side I could really drop into it. I could almost want to lay my body all the way on the ground. So if that happens, you could go for it. But depends on where you're at in this pose. If you've never done it before, you'd want to really be gentle on yourself and stay up higher and not drop as deeply into it. Stay with it, maybe like another minute to go here on the timer. Slow, steady breaths. Almost there. What are you feeling in this posture? And are you able to stay with that sensation and not distract yourself with thought, right? So that's what we do when we bypass. We distract ourselves instead of truly being with the experience, right? So be with the experience of what you're feeling in your body and breathe through it, and try not to leave the present moment. Come back again and again to the breath, We've got maybe 2 or 3 more breaths. And just like before, we're going to come out of it super slowly. So take your time, coming back up onto your hands. Carefully start to step back. And then again, you could take your down dog, your child's pose, whatever you might wish for, maybe a tabletop, circle your hips a little bit, and let's take about 3 more breaths where you are. So we're going to keep going with working on this area of the front of the hip, which relates to stomach and spleen meridian. Okay, so the next one we're going to do, you might be familiar with the shape of it. So the shape of it is just like pigeon pose in our regular hatha practice. In yin yoga, we call it sleeping swan. So the names are different in yin yoga because we do the poses differently. This is a pose that is often tricky if we have sensitive knees. So I'm going to give you some options. So I'll show you the pose, and those of you who are not happy in your knees, I want you to protect yourself and do the alternate variation, okay? So sleeping swan, I'd like you to have a pillow or a block, whatever you have handy, to go underneath your hip if you're new to this kind of a pose. If you know you're okay without it, you don't really need to use the prop, but I think many of us could benefit from it. So from here, I'm going to slide my right knee forward. Actually, move the pillow so you can see. So I'm going to move my right knee forward. The left leg is going to go straight back. I'm going to walk that knee back. And here's where I've got maybe a little pressure in this front knee. So if I add a pillow underneath my sit bone, it takes the pressure out of the knee, and that could be higher up. You could use a block if you need to, 2 pillows, roll up a blanket. There's many options. And then eventually we're going to come down into it. But I'm going to show you a few alternates, and I'm also going to show you an acupressure point, so don't come into it yet. So that's option A, is the full pose of sleeping swan. If your knees are sensitive, you're going to do it reclined on your back. Don't want to spill my water again. So reclined on your back. It looks like this. Ankle crosses over the knee. That's stage 1. Stage 2 is pick the foot up and reach behind the other opposite leg, my left leg, and pull that knee into the chest. It's a slightly different pose, but we're getting the same kind of hip opening here. Okay? So those are your 2 options, sleeping swan, face down or face up. The acupressure points are along the stomach meridian line. So I'm going to come and show you that a little closer. Okay. So right under the pupil of your eye, you can feel your bone of your eye. That's going to be point 1, right under your eye. Point 2 is going to go under your cheekbone. Again, in line with your pupil, right there. We're going to use those points when we do our sleeping swan. We're also going to use a point a little bit later in the jaw. So put your hands on your jaw and clench. Press your teeth together, and when you clench, you'll feel a little muscle pop out right here in your jaw. We're going to put our thumbs into that muscle. Okay? So those are some of the points we're going to use. I think there might be one more, but I'll show it to you if I think of it. So first stage of sleeping swan, we're going to press below the eye bone. Okay, so let's come into it. And if you're on your back, you're not going to do the points because you're going to be using your hands to pull your leg into your chest. So don't worry about the points. You'll be able to do some later. I've got a few more acupressure points. Okay. Right knee slides forward by the right wrist. The shin bone comes back on an angle. That's a little more gentle on your knee than being like a square forward. That's a little more advanced. Stretch back through your left leg. And then you're going to come down onto your elbows and put your thumbs right in those stomach points under your eyes. Now your other fingers are going to go up on your forehead, close to your hairline. That's the other point I was trying to think of. There's a stomach point right along your hairline toward the outer edge. So if you put your fingers up there, you'll hit it. All right. So let your head drop into your hands, into your thumbs. We're going to hold the points for about the halfway through the pose. We're doing 3 minutes. In about 1.5 minutes, we're going to let go of those points and fold down as far as you would like. So stay with it, a few more breaths here. Fingers are on the top of the hairline. The thumbs are under the eyes. Let yourself release into the earth. Just like the plants, they go back to the earth. Now 30 more seconds with the acupoint. You don't have to press hard, but let your head release into your hands. Okay, so from here, we're going to just release down. So you might be on your forearms. You might put a block under your head, any level, and lower it down, a pillow also, or you can come all the way down onto your arms. So there are stages to all these yin poses, and you want to make sure you're at the stage that feels appropriate for your body today. So not the body you wish you had, not the level of flexibility you wish you had, what you're dealing with today. We want to take care and not hurt our bodies by pushing too hard, efforting too hard. We want to really be able to release into these yin postures. And if we're in pain, it's going to be hard to release. So last few breaths here. Breathe through any intensity you might be feeling. Okay, now when we come out, we're going to first walk our hands up if the hands were down. Lean over onto that right hip. You're going to swing your back leg around. And I'm going to come to face forward. You're going to come into a cross leg position. If being in a cross-legged position is challenging for you at all, pull a pillow in to sit up on something a little bit higher. And now we're going to do that next acupressure point that pops out in the jaw. When we do sleeping pigeon side 2, we'll do the one under the cheekbone. So, feel for that muscle, clench your jaw, feel it pop out, and put your thumbs where that muscle pops out. Other fingers are going to go on that forehead along the hairline, and then allow your elbows to come inside your knees and drop into it. We're going to hold here for those 3 minutes. Halfway through, we're going to let go of the points and simply come into a forward fold. So there's also some acupressure points here on the inner knee. So you might feel tenderness in these different areas of the body where you're applying pressure. So that pressure could find that soreness. And that might indicate some of the stagnant energy in there. So when we come out of the pose, the renewed blood flow is going through that area. So it's like a little dam, little mini dam when we press on it. Take our hands off, take our elbows off, and then we can experience more flow through that area. So we're going to stay with that another 30 seconds to a minute, and then we're going to change it up. Slow, smooth breathing. Try to stay present and feel and sense into your body rather than thinking about what you need to do later or what happened before. From here, slowly release those points, and then you're going to slide into a deeper forward fold. Let your head drop. Now, a forward fold for you might look like this, your head dropping. You might wish to have a prop or two, so you could put your forehead on a block. Or you could simply release directly down toward the ground. Let your head go. You could also prop up onto your hands, another option. So here we're compressing into the front of the body where these channels run, the stomach spleen energy running through the torso. So we're getting a little compression in there, again like that damming up of the energy. When we release that forward fold, then that fresh energy can flow through with a little more force through that area. So last couple breaths. Let go even more. Let your head get even heavier. The breath even slower and deeper. Let's take one more breath. Exhale completely. And now let's slowly start to walk ourselves back up. Remember, we want to come in and out of the poses in slow motion. And then we pause when we get vertical, just to give yourself a chance to come back to balance, to regroup, and just let the blood flow normalize. Okay, let's do that same sequence on side two. So either sleeping swan on your back or facing the ground. This time you're going to go for that stomach point directly in line with your pupil but under your cheekbone. So last time it was under the eye bone. Go a little lower, find under the cheekbone. So left leg forward, and you can do this from your tabletop. Slide it forward, other leg back, or modify if you need to. And then grab that pillow for underneath your left sit bone if you have any strain in your knee. If that doesn't help, then choose the version on your back. Okay? So going for that 3 minutes, we'll do about 1.5 minutes with the acupoint, and then we'll let it go for the last 1.5 minutes. Under the cheekbone. Elbows are down on the floor, so if you have pointy elbows like me, you're going to want to make sure you have a nice support underneath. Other fingers are along the hairline. Try to make sure your hips are kind of level and square toward the front of your mat. So I don't want to be kind of shifting off to the side. Rather, we're going to have those hip points as level as we can. It might be different for you. Another option is to have a little bend in that back knee, but we're not getting as much into the hip flexor then. So ideally that leg would be straight, but it could be a modification if you need it. Drop into the pose. Release toward the earth. Allow the breath to nourish you. Let go of the points slowly, and then you can release into the pose. You can stay up on your arms, block under your forehead, or come all the way down to the ground. And I sometimes turn my head and just lay on the earth. So that might not be accessible, so don't force it. Stay where you're meant to be at this moment. Almost there. Last few breath cycles. Really drop into the ground. Feel the ground nourish you. Feel the pull of gravity. And then we'll take one more breath. And after that breath, slowly coming out, walk your hands back and then lean over toward that left hip. Swing the right leg around into the front. So I'll come to face you again. Feel free to grab that cushion to sit on. And this time we're going to change it up a little bit. The acupressure point is going to be one that's spleen, one that's stomach. So we're going to take your left hand and hold directly across your body. Place your fingers on your rib cage. And then take your other hand into the notch between your collarbones. And then hold there. Close your eyes if that feels comfortable for you and breathe. So the rib cage is a spleen point and the clavicle point, that's the stomach point. So holding these together can help bring balance into this pair of yin and yang meridians. At about the midway point, we're going to release and come into the forward fold. So long, deep breathing here. Nice, relaxed face, relaxed jaw, soft eyes. Sometimes you might feel a little pulsation begin between your hands. You might notice those energies syncing up. Two more breaths here. After that second breath, slowly release the points. Take an inhale, and as you exhale, walk it out and fold forward. Again, you can add a block in under your forehead. You can have blocks under your arms. You can just let your head drop. And we'll finish out that last minute and a half or so here. Surrender the weight of your upper body, the weight of your head. Let everything drop and drop even more into the earth. Surrender all muscular effort and just focus on your breathing. We're almost there. Very slowly, starting to walk yourself up. Take your time, and then we're going to bring the legs out in front of us this time and just stretch them out for a moment. Maybe circle your feet, wiggle the legs out, bounce the legs out. Now we're going to come into the bound angle position. So soles of the feet together. Again, you might sit up on a prop here. You could also stick blankets or blocks under your knees if you feel like you need some support there. I'm going to do it without. And we're going to do another acupressure point. So I'm going to pull up my pant legs a moment. And this is called the spleen 6 point. So spleen 6 point is also a meeting point of 3 yin meridians. The liver, the kidney, and the spleen all meet on this point, called the 3 yin intersection. And it's a few finger widths above your ankle bone. So if you take your 4 fingers right above your ankle bone, right where that last finger is, that's about where these points are. So you can kind of feel around for any tenderness in there, and then you can apply a little pressure. You can certainly stay upright here, or have an inhale, and as you exhale, come into a forward fold. And then we're going to press gently into that point, holding it for half of the time. So nice slow breaths here. This is a great point for insomnia. So the yin helps draw that energy down and can help us calm our minds. This can also be a good point for female concerns, reproductive concerns, period problems, as it's that yin energy, again, those 3 crossings there. General well-being, balancing, and stress reduction. So great point for this practice that we're doing today of finding balance. Stay with those long, smooth breaths. Softening into the face, the jaw, the shoulders. Drawing that breath into the lower back, lower belly, hips, and pelvis. Just keep letting yourself drop and sink. Now for the last minute and a half, slowly let go of those points and fold inward. I like to just let my arms come down very passively, turning my palms up, letting my head drop. Using this opportunity to go within, to find that interoception, perceiving what you're noticing in your body. Now you might notice here my feet aren't pulled all the way in like I might normally do for a bound ankle. They're more forward. So in a yin version of this pose, we call it the long leg butterfly. So you don't have to have those legs in super close. Stay with it, you're almost there. And you'll notice the longer you hold these postures, gravity starts to pull you deeper without effort. You're not pulling yourself or yanking yourself into that pose. Gravity is working its magic and allowing the nervous system to release the tissue, allowing you to go deeper, just by means of letting go rather than force. So we tap into that sense of flow where we're not forcing a situation. So we can think about how we do things off our mat or often how we do things on our mat. If we're very forceful in situations in life and we're always trying to manage and control, we're going to do the same things on our mats. So if you can let go of that and instead simply be, you might find the tissues respond more than react and tense up. Okay, let's slowly roll up. Take your time. And then use your hands, pull the knees up and extend the legs out. Have a moment here. Maybe you want to bounce the legs, wiggle them out. And we're going to come into our next pose in a moment. Some of you might wish to be sitting up onto a prop for this one. We're going to take the right leg out to the side and see if we can fold the left leg back. For some of us, this is not a happy position for the knee, So perfectly understandable. We can do this instead, okay? So if you can't fold your knee back, bring your foot in front of you. And even here, you might feel like this knee is way off the ground. If it is, you're going to give it a little bit of support with a block or a rolled up blanket or folded up pillow. A bed pillow would work great here. But if you can, you're going to come into this kind of folded back version of this leg. Okay? And now we don't have to keep this leg active as we might do in a regular practice. In yin, we're letting it be relaxed and soft. And the first thing we're going to do is take a twist toward this bent leg side, which gives us a little bit of stimulation in through here into the abdominal organs. We're going to do each of these positions for only 1 minute, and then we're going to take a longer hold later. Okay, so twist toward the bent leg side, towards your left side. And I'm actually mirroring you, so this is my right side, but I'm mirroring what you would see. Our left side is considered the yin side of our body, the feminine side. And when I say feminine, I don't mean girly. It just is those qualities, right? It's our side that is the intuitive, kind of introspective side of our being, right? We're two halves of a whole, and we have a masculine and feminine aspects of our personalities, of our being. We have the outgoing, more productive side of ourselves, and then we have the softer inner side. Whether we're male or female, we have all those qualities. One more breath here in the twist. And then slowly unwind, coming back through center. Okay. Now we're going to twist toward the straight leg side, but this time we're going to fold over the leg for 1 minute. So as you're ready, you're going to fold over the straight leg. And folding, you might be right here. That might be your fold. You could also bend this knee and bring your belly towards your thigh. You could also take a rolled blanket and stick it underneath your knee. That'll give you some more comfort there, especially if you have a little tightness in the hamstring attachment. This will soften that area up a little bit. So I'll show it with the blanket in place. Again, you might be up higher, or you might be able to let your head go. My head is actually resting on my shin, but that might not be possible for you today. Don't force it. Remember, allow, surrender, and release. Last breath. And then slowly start to walk yourself back up. So these ones might seem really short now compared to some of those longer holds we did, but because we're doing so many different positions, I don't want to make it too long. This video could easily get to be 2.5 hours if I were to hold every pose that long. But know that as you progress in your practice, you might wish to hold them longer, and you could certainly just press pause on your video at any time and then hold a pose longer or do it longer on your own. Third part is going to be to fold through center. You can keep that blanket under your knee if you wish. I'm going to take it out. You're going to tip forward, walk your hands forward, and then let your head drop and get heavy toward the ground. So I'm going to move these things out of the way. 1 minute here. Drop your head like a bowling ball. Your spine rounds as you come down. Now, anyone who has like serious disc issues, you're not going to want to do these forward folds because it'll compress the front of your spine even more. So I would recommend staying up higher if you do have any disc issues on the front of your spine. So just keep that in mind, and we'll take a little bit more time here. Remember, you could be up on a block, you could have a block under your forehead, or you could drop all the way down to the earth. Last breath or two. And even though I come out and talk and show you things, I want you to try to be as still as you can. slowly starting to come up, and lean back and take both legs out straight and bounce them out a little bit. Okay? So remember, you could also do that whole thing with the foot like this, and we fold this way, and then forward. Okay, so now other side. So now left leg is out straight, right leg comes into that fold. We have a little bit of a space between the legs. First round, we're going to take a twist toward the bent leg side. So twist over toward your right side. Left leg can just be relaxed here. Long, deep breaths. Almost there, a couple more moments. One more breath here in the twist. And then we'll slowly release, coming back through the center. Okay, now we're going to turn toward the straight leg and fold forward. Folding forward might be just bringing your hands forward a little bit. That's okay. Let this leg be relaxed. Remember, we can put props here. Another thing we could do is put our hands under our knee, if that gives us just that little bit of lift. Some of us tend to be very hyperextending, and the knee just doesn't feel good in these straight leg positions where we put pressure. So then we'd want to add in something, hands, rolled blanket, pillow, to find that little bit of softness in the hamstring. And then letting your head drop like a bowling ball. It may or may not get down to touch your leg. No worries, there's no need to force it. Allow gravity to help you drop into the pose. All right, slowly, slowly, starting to come back up through the center. And now we're going to fold right through center. So remember, you can have this leg in that other position if you need to. Walk it out. You can stay up higher, or you can fold down all the way. And then staying with that for 1 minute. Just checking what we're doing next. Okay, I know what we're doing next. Go inward, go with your breath. Keep the mind steady and calm. Be soft in your jaw, in your face. And allow the breath and gravity to help you release further, rather than using effort or force. Last 3 breaths. And then we'll slowly start to come back up. Take your time. Lean back and take that leg out. You might want to bounce them a little bit, wiggle them out. So now we're going to fold directly through center. Have those legs relaxed. Remember, you could put support under both knees here if you wanted to by rolling up your blankets, okay, or little pillows. Towels work as well. I'm just going to let that go. I'm also still sitting on to a pillow. And now this one we're going to hold for 3 minutes. So coming into that forward fold. You could stack up your hands and rest down toward the ground. You could have a block under your forehead. You could also use a big pillow or a bolster. And this will make it passive without going too deep. So those of you a little bit tighter in the hamstrings, put put this bolster on an angle toward your body, and then you can put your forehead on the prop. So that's another way that you can modify. Those of you who feel really good in it, and you feel like that sensation is not unbearable, you'd want to let yourself go a little deeper. Again, proceeding with caution, going slowly. Gravity in the breath guides you into the pose. So stay with it. We're going to do our 3 minutes here. Typically, a deeper sensation here in the inner thighs, in the inner groin, but we're also getting that compression through the front of the body where these meridians run through. Legs be relaxed, feet relaxed, jaw relaxed. Let go. If you're up higher, let your head go. Drop into your head. As long as that feels okay on your neck. If it doesn't, you can certainly stay upright. So we're almost done with this practice. We only have one or two more sets of poses to go. Halfway there through this pose, stay with it. About 1 more minute. Last few breaths, stay with it. As you inhale, imagine drawing energy up through the ground, up through the earth to nourish. And as you exhale, imagine releasing, letting go back into the ground. So we feel like this reciprocal exchange with the mother, with the earth. 1 more breath. And then very slowly coming up in your own time. So take your time. And then as you're ready, when you come to vertical, have a pause. And then you could lift your knees and bring those legs together. So this last pose is probably the most challenging of the whole sequence. I know this one's a more challenging yin sequence. Say probably more of a level 1, 2, even a 2 for some of these things. So I'm going to give you options on this one. So it's called saddle pose, and we're going to do half saddle on each side, and then we're going to try a full saddle for those of you who are up for it, and otherwise I'll give you another option. So let me just show you modification first. So you're going to sit on a block. And if you sit on a block, you're going to take one leg, fold it back behind you like we did earlier, and the other leg could extend. Now, I often feel like when that leg's extended, I need that pillow underneath this leg. The next phase of it is going to be to lean back, but we won't use the block when we do that. So stage 1, you're just going to stay upright, and you might need 2 blocks underneath your seat to make this accessible. And that's fine if that is what you need. So if you feel like you want to try to go to the next level, we're going to have that block as an elevation underneath a big pillow. And you can use a couple of bed pillows stacked up on top of each other. I'm using one of my big bolsters, but certainly if you stacked up 2 blankets and even put like not a blanket, 2 pillows and put a blanket on top of it, it would be firm enough. And then we'd also want to have a pillow for the head. So a folded blanket can be useful there. Okay, so now I'm going to fold my right leg back, left leg extended, and I'm going to come into the pose this way. Now just like I did in that opening sequence, I'm going to tip my tailbone toward the front of the mat to create a little space in my lower back, and then lengthen, coming back, putting that pillow under my head. So I'm going to do a 2-minute hold here. It's a little bit shorter. If you need to come out sooner, you have any strain in that front knee, you certainly could come up to the vertical position, and you could do it like this, sitting on a block or not. Okay? Try not to splay the legs apart. Keep them close in towards each other. The toes point straight back here. Now you might have a little space between the legs, that would be fine, but don't intentionally splay them out. And then let your back body drop and rest into the prop. For me, this is pretty mild, believe it or not, so I would want to go to the next level if I were doing this in my own practice. So I'm going to give that as an option because there might be some of you who could go deeper. So I would then come down even lower. So I take that bolster out of the way, and I'm going to just use a folded blanket under my spine. And I could even go flat if I wanted to, but I'm going to show you guys the next level. I'm going to come down with that blanket under my spine, and then for a pillow, I'm going to roll the edge of the blanket under my neck. So that's the first minute. I'm going to go now for minute 2. Feeling that spaciousness along the front of the body, the front of the hip flexor. Our whole practice worked toward preparing us for this final pose. Drop into the ground. Last couple of moments. So since this one is more intense, I'm doing a shorter hold. If it does feel good to you and you'd want to stay longer, you could feel free to pause the video and stay a little bit longer. Just let it play, and you could back it up. That would be fine too. Last couple of breaths. So to come out of this pose, I'm going to try not to twist the spine too much. I'm going to prop up onto my arms until I can come all the way up, and then lean over enough that I can stretch this leg out. And then I like to kind of point flex my feet a little bit, wiggle out the knees, and then we're going to do side 2. So same options. You're going to either sit upright on the block, fold that one leg back, sit upright on the block, use your bolster or your pillow stack with a blanket on your head, or a tri-fold blanket, lengthen the tailbone, and come down. I'm starting that timer. Remember, the knees can be slightly apart, but try not to intentionally splay them. Make sure that your spine is lengthened over the props here. Your head is supported either with a roll under your blanket here, or a pillow would also work. And then allow yourself to drop in. Breathing here into the front of the body where you might be feeling restriction in that front thigh, front hip crease. Stay with it. Remember, if there's any pain in the knee, you would modify, come out, stay up higher. Feel the ground or the support of the props under your body. 1 more minute to go. Couple more breath cycles, almost there. All right, so when you're ready to come out, take your time. Start to prop yourself up. Try not to twist too much. Lean over and stretch that leg out for a moment. Okay, so now some of you are going to choose to go into this full version of it, or you're going to just do like your legs out straight. For this one, I am going to use the bolster. So block, bolster, head pillow. And then I'm going to come into both knees bent. And I'm kind of sitting right in between my calves and my feet. And then here I'm going to get that tailbone to move forward to lengthen the lower back and then come back onto the prop. Now if this is too much, you could sit up on your blocks. You're going to stay upright and you're still getting this stretch to the front of the thighs. So be smart about it. Do what works best for you. Last option is to give yourself a restorative pose. Let your legs be out straight. If you've had enough of the knee bending, stay away from it and just give yourself a nice relaxing pose here with the legs out straight. We're still kind of opening up this front of the body. It's still a very beneficial pose. It's just different. So I'm going to come into it. And we're going to only hold it for 1 minute. I'd love to do this one longer. So if that's you, feel free to do so. But for the sake of keeping our video from getting too long, and also because for some of us this is a new pose that is intense, I'm going to just do it for 1 minute. Whichever version you're in, try to relax as much as you can. I know it's easier said than done. Sometimes we can't tell ourselves to relax. But if you focus on your breathing and focus on exhaling in particular, it might help you relax without trying to relax. And when there's an intense posture, that relaxing can be even more challenging. Last breath here. And then we're going to slowly again start to come up. Take your time, try not to twist, lift your hips a little bit, and then you can swivel your legs out from under you and give them a little bounce. Okay, so we're just about done, just checking time. We're going to come into a very quick counter on our back and then our Shavasana. So maybe you want a pillow in front of your head. I'm going to just come down and take your legs wide, arms out, and just a little windshield wiper side to side. If you have time, you can always do a recline twist. So I'm not going to show that as it's getting to be time to bring the video to a close. But you could always come here, stack your knees up, and take a twist on each side if you wish, and that would feel good. Otherwise, let's just come into a knee hug at first. Rock a little bit, cross your lower back, and then reach down, hold your ankles,
And let the tailbone get heavy and drop. Let the shoulders drop. You can stay there or then lift the feet. Coming into happy baby. Be as passive as you can. So if going for feet feels like you're striving to get there, hold your ankles or hold your legs. So we don't want to feel like we're efforting in the yin practice. We want to be soft. So I prefer ankles for this one because I feel like it pulls down with gravity, but I don't have to effort to like get up there to grab the feet. One more breath here. And then hug the knees back in. Let the feet fall. And then one at a time, take one leg out, then the other leg out. Give them a good little wiggle, little bounce. Wiggle your hips, and then drop into your Shavasana. So this pose of Shavasana, the yinnest of all, no effort, no holding ourselves up, just a full release into the support of the mother, of the earth, the one that nurtures, provides for us, provides our food, provides our nourishment, helps us feel grounded, stable, and calm. So I'm going to ask you to continue to stay as I come out. Continue to release all effort into the support of the ground. We're going to take a couple more minutes here. Know that you are always welcome to take as long as you like in your Shavasana. For the sake of video time, we're going to take, just about a 5-minute Shavasana. Ideally, you'd want to stay for 10, even 15 minutes to deeply nourish yourself. But just to have 15 minutes of you in Shavasana just makes the video much longer, so we will bring it to a close in a few moments. Continue to relax for a few more moments. if you are ready, by first deepening your breath. Notice how you feel at the end of your practice and deep rest. Perhaps a little wiggle of fingers and toes, a little stretch. So follow your intuition, give your body what it needs before rolling over onto one side. So in a yin practice, you might wish to balance your energy by rolling left instead of right onto that yin side. But whatever side feels more intuitive for you, there's no right or wrong. But pause there for a few breaths when you get over to your side. And then gradually taking your time, coming up to a comfortable seat. We're going to finish with just a brief seated meditation. So we're going to take a hand position called the Earth Mudra. So you're going to take your ring finger, touch it to your thumb. The other fingers are extended, and then you can either have your hands up or down. I kind of prefer down for when I'm working with earth energy, it's drawing downward. So whatever feels best for you. And then sitting up tall, close your eyes or find a gazing point on the ground. Feel your sit bones resting on the floor. Take a few breaths. Feel your sit bones rest into the earth. Starting to breathe into the length of your spine. And then focus on your energy, your awareness toward the tailbone, toward the perineum, toward the base of your spine. And take a few breaths here into the base of your spine, which we call first chakra. First chakra relates to the earth element, our ability to feel stable and safe and calm in this world. And as you keep your awareness there, imagine that your body is like a plant or a tree, and you're sending roots down deep into the ground, connecting to that deep mother energy of the earth. Let it anchor you. And with each breath, send those roots deeper into the earth. Have a few breaths visualizing the roots growing downward. Particularly focusing on your exhales. Now, after a few breaths like that, starting to reverse the travel of energy. So just as a tree's roots feeds its water and nutrients, begin to draw energy upward through the root system into your body. Let it rise up through the roots, imagining the energy as perhaps light or color entering your body, sensation, or simply perceive it with your awareness. And now take a few more breaths, drawing that energy upward into your body. Then starting to imagine that this energy is reciprocal. So as you inhale, drinking that energy up through your roots, nourishing your body. And as you exhale, releasing it back down, roots growing deeper, as if those roots were trying to find the water deep within the earth. Knowing that this energy goes both ways, the yin energy from the earth nourishing us.
here, let's release the mudra and bring your hands together in front of your heart space. Let's take a moment, gratitude for your practice, for the earth supporting, nourishing, grounding us. Deep inhale, and as you exhale, bow your head to your heart. Thank you, everyone. Namaste. All right, thank you so much for practicing with me today. I hope you feel very calm, grounded, and stable, and I will see you on your next